Welcome to the Miller Report. I'm Suzanne Miller, host of the Miller Report and founder of Empire State Properties. Today's guest may not be a household name yet, but he oversees a part of New York City that impacts all of us. If you ever travel around New York City, then you want to hear everything about today's guest. He is the commissioner and chairman of the Taxi and Limousine Commission in New York City. Welcome, David Doe, to the Miller Report.
Yeah, thank you so much, Suzanne, for having me on the show today. I'm so excited to be here to talk about the industry and to see what's ahead for the for-hire industry.
We have a lot of questions for you, particularly with the new laws that are going on right now, but we'll do one at a time.
Okay, no problem.
Pretty much everybody takes a taxi in New York, and I know this because the Miller Report is advertised in the back of every taxi.
Right.
So thank you, because I think we have a partnership and we work together, and I am promoting New York because the Miller Report is all about politics and real estate. Okay. Because the truth is, without good politics and leadership, we will have no value in real estate.
That's right.
And I'm advertising this because we really want to get the word out. And we've done so well, and I thank you because the taxis have been a big vehicle in bringing people's awareness to the Miller Report. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And nothing better than the iconic yellow taxi, right? Everyone knows about it, from every movie that is based in New York to everywhere else. You know, your face is on every single one of our taxis. So that's really exciting.
It is exciting. But speaking of that, explain to our audience the difference between a yellow taxi and, let's say, an Uber or a Lyft. Like, what government agencies oversee which?
That's a great question. And the TLC is a Taxi and Limousine Commission, and it was created to oversee all types of vehicles that are for hire in New York City. And so that could be the 13,585 yellow taxis or the 82,000 Ubers and Lyfts. But then there's other sectors too, like commuter vans that there are 34 of. And then there's also our livery bases, and then our traditional black car, and of course, for those who can afford it, the Lux limos of the world. And so we regulate all types of vehicles at the TLC.
Maybe we have to get into those.
Yeah, exactly.
So I read an article that you periodically drive around taxis in an effort to experience the role of a driver. Is that correct? Did you actually do that?
That's correct. And, you know, one of the things that I asked my team to do is to treat me like every other driver, right? And so, you know, I could have said, just get me one of those licenses and let me start going into a yellow taxi and hit the streets. No, right? I had to go through what every single driver goes through, right? It's a 24-hour course, which is a pretty tough course in and of itself. It's over 3 days, and we are just, you know, learning about the rules and regulations of the for-hire vehicle industry. And then you got to take a test, right? And this test you got to pass with at least a 70%. And then, you know, you got to do a drug test, a background check. And what that means, right, to our audience out there is that all of our drivers are safe. They don't have a criminal record, and that they're legal to operate on our roadways. And they have the appropriate insurance to ensure that if indeed, in that small chance that we get into a crash, that the passengers are protected.
Well, we're going to get into all that, but a practical question, because you were driving around like pretending to be just a regular person. So what happens if a taxi cab driver who's doing these 12-hour shifts has to go to the bathroom?
That's an excellent question, right? And it's something that, you know, I had to experience when I had to go to JFK to pick up a passenger, and, you know, you're waiting in line for up to 3 hours already.
You keep a wee-wee pad in the back seat? Like, what do you do?
No. Like,
a jar? Like,
we have to be kind and ask for kindness from a Starbucks or from a restaurant that we know. Or, you know, drivers now have the option of the Taxi Clubhouse, which is in Chelsea, one of the areas where many drivers drive, and they can have a parking spot there. It's a taxi stand, and they can run in, and the Taxi Clubhouse allows for working out, for a prayer room, for massage chairs, for TVs, and just a little bit of a break during a very busy day. Drivers work upwards of 12 hours a day. And so, you know, I think we really do need to give to them a little bit of space and a little bit of grace so that they can have a recovery period.
Who would ever think amenities for taxi cab drivers? We know we're doing this in Class A office buildings, but now I think that's great. That's fantastic. Let's talk about something that everybody's talking about in the news this week, which is just everybody's talking about, everybody's concerned. There's so many questions. This congestion pricing.
Right.
It was just approved in New York City last week. How will this impact the taxi industry?
Well, Suzanne, you might not know, but the yellow industry and the for-hire vehicle industry already contributes to the MTA, right? There's on the yellow taxis. That's why when it starts up, you're like already at $5 to $10 already per trip, right? Before you even go.
Wait, let me understand this. Excuse me. You were already paying for this before it went into effect?
No. This is just what was passed previously.
I see. Okay.
So there was a 50-cent MTA surcharge and then a $2.50 congestion charge that already goes to the MTA. Now, for yellow taxis anyways, they're adding $1.25 on top of that. Right. And so what I'm saying is that, before you go in, you have a set of taxes that you're already paying to the New York MTA.
But what about now? How is this going to
Right.
affect the driver and the consumer?
Exactly. And so what I wanted to start off by saying is that, there's already these charges. And so, we have been in the room trying to say to the MTA, to our lawmakers, that we're already paying a lot. But the administration, we support congestion pricing, right? But it has to be implemented in a responsible way. Right now, what we think is that this surcharge might say, okay, well, this might be too expensive. And there might be drivers and passengers that might not want to take a yellow taxi or a for-hire vehicle. It's $1.25 on the yellow side, $2.50 on the black car side. Right? It can be a little bit better where there's less traffic. So it means that we can get to our destinations a little bit faster. That might be a good thing. And there might be more trips if a driver can complete their trip a little bit faster. And so, this is up in the air. But what we do know from the environmental reports is that yellow taxi drivers, black car drivers are an environmental justice group. And what that means is that, they may be disproportionately impacted by this new law and by this new congestion charge. And so they need to make sure that they watch out for our drivers. They watch out for this population so that they're not disproportionately impacted. And that's something that I'm looking at.
Do you know what happens to the residents that live below 60th Street? Will they be exempt? Have you read anything about that?
I'm more involved in the for-hire industry, but right now I don't believe that there are any exemptions for those who live in the zone.
So this is going to hurt the small business owners. It's going to hurt the people that, the working class of the city. Do you not agree?
Well, look, what I do think, right, overall is that congestion pricing is going to bring big changes. It's going to lessen traffic. It's going to ensure that, that maybe there's going to be more business drives through because, they're going to have to go to that business and there's more parking spaces, more better to drive if they're willing to pay that $15.
Okay, let's move on to the taxi and Uber, which you oversee both. So in my personal opinion, and I take a lot of taxis and Ubers, the taxis seem to be in much worse condition. They're in disrepair. It doesn't seem like the bumpers are falling off and they're dirty. Goodness, there was a grenade in one of them last week. So, and the Ubers seem to be much better and they smell better. Like, why is one so much better than the other? Explain that to us.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily true, Suzanne, but maybe you've had bad experiences,
yeah,
right, within the yellow taxis. But within the yellow industry, right, many of them are fleet owned. And so maybe that's part of the reason. But what we do at the TLC is inspect these vehicles at least twice a year, the yellow side anyways. And so we ensure that they look right, that they're painted properly, and that they're safe to utilize on our roadways. But if there's ever a complaint, please let the TLC know through 311. We want to take those seriously, and if the vehicle is in bad disrepair, we will send a directive to that driver and make them come back and make them repair it.
You're saying that the oversight is the same for Uber and taxis?
Actually, the inspections is a little bit less on the black car side.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. So Maybe it's my imagination, but I seem to think the Ubers are cleaner, and I'd rather be in an Uber than a yellow cab, even though I do support the yellow cabs.
I appreciate
obviously.
your support for all of our industry.
Speaking of the yellow cabs, let's talk about the taxi medallion. They used to be like gold. I think a lot of foreigners, even all my parents' friends that were immigrants, they would buy a medallion. That was their way. You didn't speak English, you bought a medallion. It was like the key to success.
Yeah.
What is the value of a medallion today?
Well, we don't keep track of values of medallions. What we know is that they sell from anywhere between $97,000 and $200,000, depending on the financing.
They were $1 million.
It. They were $1 million.
They were $1 million.
Yep.
So what happened? Did Uber take over some of that share?
Yeah, there was an advent of new competition in place, right?
Yes.
So Uber in 2015 entered the market unregulated, and for 4 years they were left to grow exponentially. That's why the TLC implemented a vehicle cap back in 2018 and 2019 based on the council's legislation. And so now we are looking at a variety of things, including congestion, charging infrastructure, out-of-borough service, accessibility, before we release additional licenses out into the community. And so we're very careful in releasing additional licenses. We have to ensure that the market can absorb them and can ensure that they will be able to operate and that there's jobs for the drivers.
It seems like during COVID, a lot of the taxis really went out. I couldn't get a taxi. Did that really is that when the value went down?
Well, it was almost a double hit, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that, there was not only a medallion bubble between 2015 and 2020, but then our taxi industry was hit once more with the global pandemic, right?
Less people.
And so it all impacted the industry. And what you saw was that today, now in a post-pandemic world, taxis are only 52% recovered, whereas the Uber industry and the black car industry, is 92% of pre-pandemic levels.
Got to fix that, guys. Who's ever listening, we need to support the taxis. These guys work so hard.
They work so
hard.
They work so
hard
hours.
to buy them. They work 12-hour shifts. They can't even go to the bathroom.
But what we did, right, was to try to help small medallion owners. And I don't know if you know about this program, Suzanne, but the Medallion Relief Program. Where we worked with the lenders to reduce the amount owed on these medallions. And so we successfully helped over 1,900 owners,
wonderful,
2,300 medallions, reduce debt of up to $450 million. And so, there's the stories, right? Like you said, these medallions were selling for $1 million, right? But we were able to reduce their debt to $1,234 a month over a 25-year period, and their loans, if they could participate in the program, is $170,000 now.
So can I put you in charge of reducing homeowners' loans too?
That's out of my bailiwick, but maybe one day.
Better not be so successful. So I understand that you've announced plans to convert taxi cabs to electric by 2030. What will this do to the industry? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, look, I'm very proud of the Green Rise initiative. Mayor Adams always talks about how do we make sure that our quality of life for all New York City residents is even better. And this is one of the ways. This is going to create better air. It's going to make sure that when we drive greener, that we're more sustainable. And in just a few short months, we've reached, for the first time ever, 1 million EV rides. We are 2 years ahead of schedule on our Green Rides initiative, right? It used to be that we were going to hit 15% by the end of 2025. We've already hit that benchmark, right? And it's because the contributions of not only our drivers who want to go green, but also the industry as a whole that sees this as an opportunity to make sure that New York City is first. And New York City has the biggest EV fleet in the nation. But it's not just that, right? A part of this plan is also to make our fleet the most accessible fleet in the country and continue to make our fleet the most accessible. And so between our wheelchair accessible vehicles and our EVs, we have about 16,000 vehicles in total. And so this is going to make our city more accessible and greener for everyone.
But who's going to pay for this, David? I mean, are the medallion owners going to be forced to buy new vehicles?
This is not a requirement on medallion owners, right? And this is the 10,000 that are actually have already picked up their vehicle saw the economic success of this. They wanted to do this, right? They wanted to own their own small business, right? Like many of us, they wanted to ensure that they're not leasing a vehicle, right? This is similar to the housing market. People, want to rent for a little bit, but they want to own their own home at the end of the day. They want to make sure that they get their own living. They want to have a pathway to the middle class. And so many of these drivers are succeeding. And then in the future, right, when their vehicles get older, right, all our vehicles are depreciate and get a little bit older, what they'll be able to do in the future is now transition from a gas guzzling vehicle to an EV if it meets their needs at that time. And so we're not saying tomorrow run out, get an EV. We're saying when it's ready, when it's time for you and you're ready to then go get an EV.
And who's going to pay for the charging stations?
Well, that's the amazing part of all of this, right? All of a sudden, we're seeing competition because now there are 10,000 more EV drivers out there. Utilization rates for our existing charging infrastructure is on the rise. And so now these big companies like Tesla, Gravity, Revel are saying, oh my gosh, in order for us to continue to support the infrastructure, we got to build it. And to continue to support more drivers to transition to an electric future, we need to support it. And so we're seeing friendly competition amongst all these companies look for proper real estate from Hunts Point to Long Island City to the west side, Midtown Manhattan. And they're building infrastructure all over the place. And look, this is what's happening. They're transitioning parking garages, right, into battery charging stations. This is a good thing, right? And so it starts with the for-hire industry, but now this is going to provide access to many New Yorkers who were like on the fence about transitioning, and now they're so excited to transition because there's more charging infrastructure. 50 more fast chargers in just the few short months since we released these licenses.
And will it cost more money?
Of course, it's going to cost more money.
No, I mean for the person, the passenger. Charging more?
Oh, yeah. No, so we haven't seen any price increases so far, right? And actually on the passenger side, passengers are going to get newer vehicles, right? So almost all 10,000 vehicles are 23, 24 late year model vehicles. So that's more exciting. So they're going to get a better service without paying any more. We haven't seen any complaints on that side.
Well, that's interesting. Let's talk about the safety of a passenger in one of these vehicles or any vehicle. So if they get in an accident, explain to our audience what is the insurance and how are they covered if they get hurt in a taxi or Uber?
That's a good question. And it's something that I always impress upon our passengers, that you need to go into a licensed vehicle. Because if you go into a straight plate, is what I call it, like a passenger plate, you're not going to be fully insured, right? And TLC requires a certain level of protection that is not existent elsewhere. It's commercial insurance that provides a certain level of protection for many of our passengers. And so how passengers can tell if it's a legally licensed vehicle is if it's a medallion number on the license plate, if it's a Y.
On the license plate or on the top?
On the license plate as well. So that some have the license plate or a Y on the license plate.
Wait. I'm sorry. This is very important.
Sure.
So you're saying that if it's not a medallion, they may not be covered for insurance if they get hurt. If it's not it's not on the license plate.
That's 100% right. So you have to get into a licensed vehicle. If you're getting into a non-licensed non-licensed straight plate vehicle with just regular New York State plates, you might not be insured.
Will they look like a yellow cab? Do they look the same?
So they should not look the same. And if anyone sees a yellow cab out there operating in this fashion, operating in a illegal fashion, you need to let the TLC know through 311. But let me. So then on the yellow side, it's the Y plates or the medallion on their plates, and of course they're dressed like a yellow. On the black car side, it's a little bit more complicated, right? But every single vehicle should have a T plate. So T, several numbers, and then a C, or TLC at the bottom of the license plate, and that you'll know was licensed by the TLC. And why that is incredibly important, again, like I said, is that they're licensed, they're bonded, they're insured, and that the driver went through a rigorous background drug test to ensure that passengers are getting into a safe vehicle. Furthermore, when you take a black car, make sure that what license plate shows up in the app matches the license plate of the car that you're going into. That's a big safety thing that I want to impress on our audience today.
That's very important. And what about for the driver? Do they have to take tests to make sure they actually have licenses and their safety? How often do they have to get recertified or take their driving test?
Every 2 years. And, this is something that we ensure that they don't have too many points on their licenses. If they have too many points, we go for revocation. If there's anything on their record that they get arrested, we go for revocation. So we consistently look at various records to ensure that our drivers are following the law and are operating safely. This is something that's incredibly serious. We want to protect the riding public.
And how does the commission oversee the actual safety of the vehicle? Like to have to bring this up, it's the elephant in the room. The back seats. There was a grenade in the backseat of a yellow cab a few weeks ago, and I mean, a driver can't know this, but is there any measure that they could take to make sure that the passengers getting in will be safe and that this would not happen again?
Yeah, it's one of those things, right, where when a passenger or a driver sees an unsafe event, they need to dial 911, right? 911 is our first line of protection. Our heroes helped get that fake grenade out and detonated. And so, we're
fake
not...
Fake grenade? Wasn't fake.
It was a fake grenade.
Oh, it was fake. Okay, good. Just to clear the record.
But 911 came, helped the driver. It took a little bit of time because of what was ongoing, because of the congestion of the streets. But our heroes came and ensured that the driver and the passengers and the public were safe.
Do they have any time in between passengers to check the vehicle?
So we impress upon our drivers to take a look between passengers of what is going on, what's in their vehicle. Especially, the grenade incident doesn't happen too often, but lost phones, for example. Right. And so, there's a process through 311 as well that we want to recover lost items and connect it with their passengers again as well.
So what about the safety of the driver? If are they required to pick up everybody? What about if somebody looks stoned or they look dangerous? How do they not pick up those pedestrians? What happens with that?
Well, look, refusals are an incredibly serious issue for the TLC. This is something that we want to make sure that drivers do not discriminate against someone because of the color of their skin, because of their sexuality, because of a disability. And so we ensure, right, that that drivers, for the most part, has to take passengers, especially those who hail. And then on the same thing, if on the black car side, if a driver discriminates against anyone, we take that very seriously as well. When and if it is visibly intoxicated or something like that, we may look into it. But if it's a complaint, right, we're going to take that seriously. And so there's always a he said, she said. And so the safest way is to ensure that we take all types of passengers, no matter their background, their color, no matter what location.
I understand you're being politically correct, but let's talk about this honestly. Are the drivers safe? Do you have have you heard a lot of stories where they've been accosted or anything? I mean, what about that?
I have heard stories across the board where where drivers have been hurt, attacked. But let me step back and say that there are a lot more legal trips. There are a lot more safe trips than there are unsafe trips. Right. In the last year, there have been 32 assaults that happened. On drivers. We connect drivers to the New York State Victim Services Fund. We connect drivers to resources at the TLC, and we ensure that their well-being. The bigger picture here, right, is that there are almost 720. There's 30 million trips a month happening, right? Up to 30 million trips happening a month, and the fraction of crime that happens in our vehicles is a very small percentage of that.
Well, that's encouraging. I want to touch on something that's also very controversial, but I try and talk to all the taxi cab drivers also because my parents are immigrants. This country is about immigration, and we all would not be here if we were not all from immigrants. This is America. But I feel that the taxi drivers who are working so hard, all of these shifts, and they're giving their lives to this, and they've saved up to buy a lot of these medallions. And I feel like they feel that they have been oppressed by the new illegal migrants that have come here and taken some of their jobs. Are you seeing any of this? Is this something that comes to your attention?
Look, so I think in this industry, you have to have a background check.
Yes.
You have to have a drug test, and part of the process is we want to ensure that all of our drivers have the necessary background to succeed in this industry. But like I said, right, we are also a land of opportunity. My parents are refugees of the Vietnam War, and, they came here. One is a hairdresser and the other is a dry cleaner, right? And they made a life for themselves. And this is something that I want for all of our migrants who come to New York City, New York State, is the opportunity to also ensure that they can provide for their families in the future. But right now, without worker authorization, they can't do that. And so that's where it's hard. They can't enter our profession legally in the current environment.
Yeah, and do you see that changing in the future?
Look, it's based on federal law, and it's not something that I actively advocate on the federal level. That's not my responsibility. But if indeed there was an opportunity, I will follow federal and state law to ensure that that folks who want to enter this profession can.
That would be a very good opportunity for a lot of these people. Let's move on to technology, which is so interesting. This driverless car.
Yes.
I mean, in some cities like Waymo, I think it's called, right, already operating driverless taxis. Could you imagine getting in the back of a taxi and there's no driver? I mean, that's got to be such a freaky feeling.
Scary, right?
Scary. So what is the future technology on this, and how will that affect the current taxi system?
Well, look, the mayor is a big advocate for innovation. Last week, the DOT and the mayor released guidelines about testing autonomous vehicles in New York City. This is an exciting first step. But like the mayor said, we have to take it in a responsive and a responsible way, right? It has to be slow. It has to be a measured approach. But we don't want to stifle innovation. And so how that might look like for the for-hire industry is a little bit different. I want to make sure that it's a responsible approach. I want to make sure that we ensure protection of 180,000 drivers who depend on this industry. And so what I see for the future is that, in places where there might not be reliable or good for hire vehicle services or accessible service, that the autonomous vehicle industry can provide that support. But we are actively and proactively looking at rules and regulations to support an industry where autonomous vehicles might enter. And so this is something that we're excited about and that we're going to take the lead on.
Don't you think this technology is going to eliminate jobs?
And that's why I say, we have to take a measured, responsible approach to ensuring the rollout of this. And it should augment our for-hire industry and not take over.
We'll see. It's like artificial intelligence. Technology is taking over, and one way it's good and one way it's bad. So let's move on to another interesting issue for the city's mobility is electric bikes and scooters. Yeah. I mean, in the real estate business, we're very careful because some of these scooters, the batteries are blowing up in apartments. Yeah. So we're banning them from some buildings because of safety issues. So many of these bikes represent for hire vehicles and like food deliveries and all of this. And who's overseeing this? I mean, half of these people, they're like running through stop signs and jumping over curbs and going backwards. There's a lot of safety issues. Yeah. Who's overseeing this? And talk to us about it.
Well, look, this is not something that the TLC oversees, but, as I said, the mayor is a very proactive mayor. He announced at his State of the City just a couple of months ago the Department for Sustainable Delivery. This is something that, you have to take a proactive approach. He's working with the council to pass legislation to create a new agency that's dedicated to ensure the safety of not only our pedestrians, our other bicyclists, but also the delivery workers themselves. And so, we are working with our partners over at the council to see what legislation might come out of that to create the new department. But look, today, our partners at NYPD, at FDNY, at DOT works together to ensure a safe operating platform for all of these folks on the infrastructure side. And on the worker protection side, it's DCWP. And so it's an all hands approach to this, and we will lend our expertise when the department is open and train our new partners at the department when and if it happens on inspection techniques, because we inspect all 100,000 vehicles that operate in the for-hire industry. And we, I think, do a great job at that. And so we can lend that expertise. But it's something that we're still working on and that we're partnering with our friends over at the City Council to ensure that we get to that point sooner rather than later. So right
now, the TLC does not oversee these. So who is overseeing this right now?
Well, like I said, right, it's NYPD in terms of street safety. It's FDNY for fire. It's DOT for the battery infrastructure. And then it's DCWP for worker protection and delivery worker pay. It's not in the purview of TLC, right? We're responsible for passengers and for hire operators that have passengers in them, not food.
Well, we do need somebody to oversee this because it is a huge issue, and I think a lot of people are complaining about this, so I appreciate that you recognize that and that somebody will be overseeing this. You say there will be a committee formed. Well, that's encouraging. Thank you.
Of course.
So last fun question for you, David. On a side note, which is so interesting to me, I read that when you were at college at the University of California, Merced, you got Michelle Obama to be the keynote speaker. Right. Is that correct?
That's correct. You know so much about me.
I do. I have to do my homework.
Okay.
I have bets with people, literal bets. I have a lot of money on this, that she's going to replace Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee. I want to know your opinion on that, being that you know her.
Well, I don't know her, and I'm not too involved in federal politics. But
just give us your candid answer.
But let me say this: is that Michelle was nice enough, graceful enough to pick the University of California Merced as her first ever graduating speech.
And you got that done.
We got that. 18 of us worked together on the Dear Michelle campaign. We wrote letters all across our campus to the White House, and we were able to convince her to come and do our graduation speech. And let me just say is that she was so nice. I gave her a hug. It was one of the most exciting moments of my life. She came in just bubbly, happy, and I got to meet her.
That's great.
So it was very exciting.
So what's your guess? 10%, 20%?
I don't
Give us
know.
just come on, just guess.
I have no idea. Probably 0%.
0%. Okay, we'll put that on the notes. Well, I don't really have any other questions. I thank you for keeping our city safe and what you do for the taxi drivers and passengers and coming on the Miller Report. And I hope that we can continue our conversations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Suzanne, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.